All right, guys, welcome back to the second last video in my NHL Deep Dive series. It's been a journey. September's been crazy. I've been pumping out like a video a day because I didn't time my life right. But we're here for the New York Rangers Deep Dive. Jack is back for his final appearance uh, on this one, and it's a personal video for him because he's a Rangers fan. So, uh, yeah, it was good to have him. Good to have him here once again. And yeah, once again, thank you for joining for this NHL deep dive finale eve video, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, excited to be back here, and I promise I won't be too biased to my childhood team here. So,
He already told me to change like seven guys to A pluses, so it's been I had to fight him off for a bit, but anyway, let's jump into the offseason for the Rangers. It was kind of a quiet summer for them. They traded for Riley Smith, which I completely forgot about until relooking at this team because there's just so much that happened this summer. But Riley Smith's a really good player, so that was a good add for them. They had Sam Carrick as well, who's kind of just a guy. And then Olivier Giroux as well. They'll sign Adam Erdy to a PTO, but he's not on the roster yet, so can't really call. I mean, Adam Erdy's not anything special either. Um, they lose Barclay Goodrow, Alexander Wenberg, Blake Wheeler, and Jack Roslovic. Obviously, Wenberg and Roslovic not there for a ton of time. This offense, I think, is slightly upgraded just based on the fact that they're going to have Riley Smith for a full season, and the two best players that they're losing weren't there for very long. Blake Wheeler was like okay in like the very few games that he played, but obviously the injuries and everything there, and moving on to the Barclay Goodrow contract will be a positive, just in general, because he really wasn't very good from the second they signed them. So getting out of that contract is obviously a win for the Rangers. But overall, like I think Riley Smith's kind of an interesting player. I'm intrigued to see how he is going to fit into this top six, and he should add another layer of scoring to this team.
yeah, I definitely think you said it best. Riley Smith is one of those sort of perennial 5-on-5 offensive guys that the Rangers could definitely use to fill that right wing role in the top six. He's also very good defensively. The Rangers could use a little more help defensively from their forwards. And then looking back at that Barkley Goodrow trade, not even trade, but just off waivers, actually, the fact
Oh
that the
yeah, that's
Rangers
right.
had to give nothing up to get rid of that contract was very impressive work by Chris Drury, in my opinion. Like you look at a guy like Jake Wallman, who is a head and shoulders better than Barkley Goodrow, and Steve Yzerman was giving up second round picks to get rid of that deal. So
Yeah.
really good work by Chris Drury there. I'm excited for Riley Smith. I didn't think the Sam Carrick signing was necessary. I think this team has enough youth within the organization. So
Yeah.
with a 1-by-3, I mean, it's not going to kill them, but I would like to see a guy maybe like Adam Edstrom, Brendan Othman possibly play. And then
Mhm.
some of the trade deadline guys that they lost here, Brozovic and Wenberg, they were okay. They look good at times and then
Yeah.
not great in others. So
That's
overall,
kind of what you
slightly
expected
upgraded offense.
from
So
players like that for sure. Like Jack Roslovic and Alexander Wimberg are just kind of like middle six plug kind of guys anyway. So yeah, it's not a big loss up front. Defensively, they lose Eric Branson, Eric Gustafson. Completely different type of player, way better. Um, obviously we talked about Eric Gustafson a ton in the Detroit
the
video.
Red Wings video.
Yeah, the infamous Detroit Red Wings video on my channel. If you haven't seen it, go read the comments. They're really funny. Um, but yeah, I mean they don't add anything externally, so by that nature, it's downgraded. But obviously, I mean Zach Jones is going to have an opportunity uh in that top six. They bring back Chad Ruedel as well, so they're like the depth wise, they will be able to cover for it internally, but just on the basis of the fact that they were off season moves and they didn't bring in anybody from outside the organization, they get downgraded for that. It's just kind of the way it works. And then in net, they didn't do anything. So obviously losing Eric Gustafson, who had his breakout year, at least from a like a casual fan perspective, I guess I'll put it, is going to be rough. But hopefully, they don't need him. They don't need anybody else other than Adam Fox to run the first power play unit anyway this year. So I'm not too worried about it as an overall loss for this team.
Yeah, they also gave Keandre Miller some reps up on the power play one
Yeah.
unit this week as well. They kind of are running a split unit right now where they have sort of Panarin's line and Fox together, and then they have sort of Zibanejad Kreider's line up there with Keandre Miller. So it'll be interesting to see what they do there now that Gustafson's gone. I mean, goaltending, this was arguably the best tandem in the league outside of the Islanders. Jonathan
It's up
Quick
there.
was a tremendous backup for Igor last year, and we all know what Igor is capable of at the top of his game. So,
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm not worried about them. The only thing is like Jonathan Quick's age is obviously something to keep a note of, but I mean, he's looked pretty good since he's come to the Rangers, so I'm not too concerned about that overall. But that is just something to we can kind of talk about a bit later. Jumping into the offense, I have this team tied for sixth in the NHL, and it is a I mean, it's the Rangers offense, right? This has kind of been the same unit they've had more or less for the last couple of years, and it's been pretty successful throughout that entire run. Uh, you talk about the top six, Panarin, Kreider, Trocheck, and Zibanejad are all in that A category. Um, are all guys who have been, very reliable for this team overall. I think they've had consistency issues with guys, especially like Zibanejad has been somebody who can get kind of hot and cold. But I mean, even if he's your fourth best player on a night, like that's a probably the best fourth best player that any team has in the NHL. And surrounding them, I mean, Riley Smith, who we just talked about, is a really good two-way player, and I think, like you said, that's something that's going to hopefully help this team, at least in their like underlying numbers. I'm interested to see how he kind of boosts those numbers up because he's had pretty solid success everywhere that he's went during his whole career. He's been a pretty stable player, and obviously Alexei Lafreniere is kind of the wild card. He had a breakout season last year in terms of becoming a top six forward. He's just somebody I need to see it from for like another year, very similar to the conversation I had with like Slavkovsky at the beginning of the season or at the beginning of the series. It's just somebody who I need to see do it again. And I've been a big Lafreniere isn't a bust guy for pretty much his entire career, so I'm rooting for him to figure it out. But even if he caps out as the sixth best forward in this top six, it's one of the best top sixes in hockey for sure. Um, yeah, I'm interested to see kind of, I guess, more so how Riley Smith fits into this because I feel like the conversation around the other five has been pretty consistent over the last couple of years for New York.
yeah, I think Riley Smith is a huge addition for this roster. They've sort of been missing that sixth forward up here in this group, and they have Riley Smith signed for the next 2 years at 5 million. So I think he is more of a long-term solution as opposed to some of the short-term solutions they've went with over the past couple of years, right? Bringing in Jack Roslovic, Patrick Kane, Vladimir Tarasenko, obviously
Yeah.
all rentals at the trade deadline. Here you get a guy like Riley Smith who has multiple years left. Hopefully you can plug him into that top six and he can be that difference maker for those underlying numbers. And I think ultimately looking at the Rangers' underlying numbers with this score ever since they sort of established themselves as a playoff team a couple years ago, people have been skeptical. They haven't controlled stats like expected goals, Corsi, Fenwick very well at 5-on-5. And I think that's ultimately why people doubt them. But I think what's really made them successful, that bridging that gap between those underlying numbers and their position in the standings has been their passing,
Yeah.
especially their microstats, like stuff that Jay Fresh tracks. They were up there in those cross slot passes and behind the net passes last year. Panarin, Trocheck, and Lafreniere were unbelievable at carrying them in that category. So I think this top six is really versatile in the sense that you have guys like Zibanejad and Panarin who could rifle a shot. You have Chris Kreider who can get to the dirty areas in front and deflect shots. And then you have passers like Panarin and some skill in Lafreniere, and then even some defense in Trocheck and Riley Smith. So overall, really versatile top six. They can do it all and one of the best units in the league for sure.
This team kind of reminds me a lot of like the 2010s Washington Capitals in the sense that like not necessarily in roster construction, but just in the fact that like they were always just a better overall team than some of their like broader analytics would point to. And I think that's just because the talent, especially up front. I mean, we'll talk about the defense and the goaltending right away, but the talent up front, it can just outscore their expected goals pretty consistently. And it got to a point, especially like near the cup win for Washington, where people just kind of started to almost disregard their mediocre expected goals numbers because the team was just able to outscore them every year. And it became such a trend that it wasn't like there was no regression to be had. It was just that is what they're going to be. And I feel that way with the Rangers at this point. It's definitely a team I've come around on because of that, because they've shown over the last couple of years that they can just outplay those numbers. And unless they're getting shelled like by like 15 or 20 shots, which was happening a couple of years ago, it's not something I'm really that concerned about. Obviously, you'd rather the numbers be more in your favor, but if you can consistently show over like 3 years that, hey, we're better, like we're just able to outplay those numbers and still be a great team, then it doesn't really concern me a whole lot in that sense. Uh, Moving on to the bottom six, I guess. Capo Caco and Philip Hedel are kind of the two guys who um stand out to me as players who might also be able to push into this top six eventually. I mean, there's not really room for them, but in the sense of like becoming more top six, like top middle six kind of players, I guess. And Hedel looked like he was on that track a couple years ago, and then he's kind of just stalled out. And Capo Caco, I think, is getting sneakily better each season. And people just aren't really noticing it because he's like the 11th best forward on this team. Um, but those are two guys that I kind of got my eye on in this bottom six. I'm interested to see if you have any thoughts on either of those guys, or if there's anybody else in this bottom six that really kind of jumps out to you as a potential uh kind of breakout, not necessarily breakout, but like person who could have some pretty good development this season.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think that Filipino and Capo Caco are underappreciated heading into the season because both these guys were 40-point players 2 years ago for Gerard Gallant. Hedel was in the 20 to 25 goal range. And then last year, it just came down to his injury. He
Yeah.
played the first 10 games of the season, then was out for the rest of the regular season, didn't make his return till the playoffs. And for Kako, again, it's also been some injuries here and there, and he obviously had a down season, but I definitely think both these guys can bounce back and be huge secondary scoring pieces this upcoming season. Another guy I really like is their line mate, Will Cooley, who
Yeah.
really impressed me in his rookie season. He wasn't really projected to be too much, but he's come in and he looks like a solid potential third liner for this team. And I really like his game. He's physical. He's not afraid to battle. He sort of has that New York Rangers identity to his game, which I really like. Looking at the fourth line, it's okay. I mean, Matt
Yeah.
Rempe did some work this offseason, as we saw plenty of videos. We weren't short of Matt Rempe content this summer, but maybe he could provide a good impact on the fourth line. And they also have Jimmy Vesey there, who came back from his stint wherever he was. I think he was in
I don't
Buffalo, and
think it
then
was
he
Buffalo.
he was all over the place. New Jersey, he was everywhere.
Yeah.
But he's back, and they signed him for a couple years for under $1 million, and he's a pretty valuable piece of that fourth line. And then you also got Sam Carrick in there, who is okay for the fourth line. They also have some young guys. Adam Menstrom might make the team. He's had a strong preseason and training camp, so
Mhm.
we'll wait to see on that. But overall, I think this bottom six just depends on what Hedel and Kako can do. Can they get back to that 40-point pace that they had 2 seasons ago? And I think they'll get pretty close to it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think they'll get the opportunity. I mean, they definitely should get some easier matchups, at least defensively, just based on how good that top six should be. So those are two guys I'm kind of excited for if they can stay healthy. Jumping onto this blue line, the conversation has to start with Adam Fox, who's like he's again in that conversation for one of the best defensemen in the league. I think this is actually it is. This is the final A+ defenseman of the four that I have. So it's a very exclusive group, and Adam Fox definitely deserves to be in it. Ever since his rookie season, he's been fantastic and extremely consistent as like just one of the best, if not the best, two-way defenseman in the NHL. And aside from that, I mean, like Andre Miller's been somebody who's stepped up and continued his development as like a very solid second option on this team. Ryan Lindgren, I think, has been pretty solid again as a running mate, especially for Adam Fox. They seem to work pretty well together. Aside from that on this blue line, I mean, Jacob Trouba is still there. I think Jacob Trouba gets like overhated because of his contract. If he was on the Oliver Ekman-Larsson contract at this point in his career, people would love him, but he's not. So we get the buyout Jacob Trouba comments, which is justified. I'm not saying that it's not, but it's just I think he gets a lot of extra hate because of the contract, because of the money that he's getting paid, which isn't unnecessarily unfair because I mean he signed the contract, but that's besides the point. Schneider, I really like again as a the third pair kind of guy, and then Jones, who has looked solid in the brief stints that we've seen him. So overall, like I think it's a pretty well-rounded blue line. They're tied for fifth. I don't remember if I said that. So it's obviously one of the best blue lines in the league, and I mean, we're talking about my second ranked team right now in the NHL. So I expect them to be pretty strong, pretty well everywhere. So yeah, I just guess kind of get some of your overall thoughts on this these six defensemen.
Yeah, let's jump into it. First, I want to talk about Ryan Lindgren, who signed that 1 year, $4.5 million deal this summer. He was sort of a guy projected for that long-term extension finally this year after signing a
Yeah,
bridge deal prior to that 1 year deal. And he's been the perfect running mate for Adam Fox. The fans in New York absolutely love this guy. He will throw his body on the line for absolutely any puck. He eats a ton of minutes as well. So he's out to start the season right now. And a couple guys who could potentially jump up and play with Adam Fox, Zach Jones, also Victor Mancini, a fifth round pick in 2022, possibly could play on his offhand and work with Adam Fox. But I just love Adam Fox. He's definitely been my
yeah.
favorite Ranger over the past couple seasons. I mean, there's no denying he's my second best defenseman in the league right now, behind Kel McCarr. And
Okay, it's interesting.
there's it's a little
That's a whole
bold to
other
have him
discussion
over.
we could have, but
It's a little bold to have him over Quinn Hughes still,
yeah.
but
I
I
mean,
think
I
I
might
need
have
to
Quinn
see.
Hughes at one right now, so
That's fair.
I'm
I think I need to see one more year of. I think I need to see one more year of Quinn Hughes.
that's fair. That's totally
I
fair.
think Hughes and Fox are in that tie for second, and then
Yeah,
Kale McCarr is at that one spot, and then Roman Yossi up there too. Obviously, those
yeah,
are all your A+ defensemen.
yeah.
Another guy, Keandre Miller, could he jump up to that first pairing as well if we see Jacob Trouba gone? The fact, the matter of fact, we know that Jacob Trouba said that quote. Said that this is the last run for this core. Does that mean maybe he's a
Yeah.
guy off the team after this year and Keandre Miller jumps up to that first pairing and maybe Ryan Lindgren's gone? So I think
Yeah.
maybe after this season, we could see a little bit of change on that blue line, which could leave a guy like Braden Schneider. Does he jump into a top four role at the end of the season over Jacob Trouba? He got some time there last
Yeah.
year with Keandre, obviously. And I'm really excited for Zach Jones. If I'm being
Yeah.
honest, he's looked great in the preseason. I think he's always deserved a chance. I thought it was going to be last season. Obviously, they brought in Eric Gustafson, who was fantastic for
Yeah.
them. But overall, this defense, they've been good over the past couple of years. They've definitely helped Igor out a ton. They've
Mm.
been one of the better teams in goals against per 60. So just got to work on defending the rush and blocking those passes behind the net, which were those two weak spots for them overall. But overall, very solid unit and relatively young as well.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the biggest thing is that this there should be a pretty decent runway for this blue line to be together for the next number of years, especially if they can get everybody locked up. But assuming that that's the case, they should be one of the best units in the league for a number of years. Finally, I mean, jumping into goaltending, the conversation begins with Igor Shturkin, who is like he's one of the best goalies in the league. He is the final of my four A+ goaltenders, um, and deservedly so. I mean, he's been fantastic for the last number of years. I think he's been the second most consistent goaltender in the league behind Connor Hellebuyck over that time frame. And I think the more interesting person, honestly, on this goaltending tandem has been Jonathan Quick, who has found a resurgence since joining the Rangers, and he looked really good. Basically, like since the second he became a Ranger, and he's been able to kind of take some of that load off of Igor, which I think should help them come playoff time, where you don't have the Connor Hellebuyck burnout that we've seen from him. Overall, like I mean, like Igor is going to be fine. I guess my biggest concern with Quick is just the age and if he eventually just falls off. But I don't. Goalies are weird, so who knows? Uh, I know there was a time I can't remember if it was early last year, where Quick actually had like the better numbers. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before that Quick had the actual like he had the better like underlying numbers over Igor for the first like month of the season. And it was really funny. So like overall, I got it's the number two goalie tandem for me, and they're alone in that. So yeah, behind the Islanders, like I think I'm pretty confident, at least going into the season, to say this is the second best tandem in the league.
Yeah, not much else to say about this tandem. Obviously, maybe the one thing is Igor Shesterkin's contract extension, which they're
Yeah, well,
still looking to work out. He wants north of 12 million, which would make him the highest paid goaltender in the league. I don't know what's going to happen there, but that can make or break this Rangers core because
Yeah.
some nights I think they live or die off Igor. And if they decide to move on from him, then there's going to be a big hole. And then if they decide to keep him, you're losing a lot of money there to extend some of
Yeah.
these guys coming off the books like Lindgren, Miller,
Mhm.
Lafreniere, right? So
Yeah.
going to be really interesting to see what happens there. But he's still got another year, and like Jacob Trouba said, this is the last crack at it for this core, and I'm excited to see what they can do with it. Also, Sam Rosen's last season
Yeah.
announcing. So
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There you go. So, yeah, I mean, overall, like, obviously this Rangers team is good. I don't know how to. I mean, I've usually been summarizing these videos. It's gotten a lot harder as we moved up the rankings because they're like they're going to be in the cup window. I don't know like what I don't know how else to to put it. This is one of the best teams in the NHL. They might win the Stanley Cup this year. I don't know what else. Like this is kind of where I've been summarizing all these teams, but there's not really a whole lot to say other than that. I guess like aside from injuries, like they should be in the conversation. Like that's the only thing I can really see slowing this team down is a bunch of injuries, and like that's I don't think there's if healthy, like I don't see a reason why this team shouldn't be contending for like the President's Trophy at the end of the year.
yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's it for the Rangers. For the last time, please tell everybody where they can find you.
Yes, you can find me on my Twitter where I upload articles about the Lightning, which is just my name, Jack J. Pilata. And then also on Instagram, I started up a couple weeks ago, a sort of like statistic stats and analytics sort of account called Statistical Stickwork. So make sure to check that out. I'll be rolling out some posts to start the season. And yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah. All right. Well, if I time these videos right, the regular season should start tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon at 1 Eastern. So hopefully we did that right. But thank you for watching. Thank you for following around along with this series. And there'll be plenty more to come after this is over. So hockey should start right away, and I'm excited for it. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the final episode. Spoiler alert, it's the New Jersey Devils. So we'll see you. We'll see you in that one.